Hey everyone, Pugs here with just one new review for y'all because today I'm covering It Came from Goo Lagoon, the special episode you don't think about when you think of the special episodes of Season 9. At least, that's my assumption. A pretty justified one in my opinion. Do you know how hard it was to make unique visuals for this episode? What was I even supposed to include? Ugh. Well, I guess all of this sets the tone of this review, huh? Whoops. Anyway, as always, thank you all for watching the video today. I especially always feel thankful when it's special episodes like these because I just really like the process of having special graphics and talking about just one episode for a whole video. It's nice. And with that said and done, let's just get right into it. I've got a question for y'all. Is It Came from Goo Lagoon quite possibly the most boring special episode of this entire show? I mean, what is even the competition here? The Clash of Triton? That one was pretty boring, but this one certainly gives that snooze fest a run for its money. I'd also argue that It Came from Goo Lagoon is the most forgettable special episode in this entire show, at least for me. Party Pooper Pants may have it beat in my mind, but that episode also has the quote-unquote advantage of being one I didn't see when it premiered, or around its premiere, meaning no advertisements to cement the memory, and is also an episode I kinda sorta actively push out of my mind for all the reasons I discussed in my review of it. Hint hint, nudge nudge. So maybe that episode truly is more memorable inherently. Whatever. This video isn't about comparing specials. It's just about talking about this one. So the point is, this episode is boring and forgettable. So now let's talk about why. Well, first of all, the plot isn't interesting. Like, the main draw of the episode, these mysterious purple goo balls coming from Goo Lagoon, isn't really interesting. This show is usually pretty good at making even the minuscule something worth watching for, so I'm honestly a little shocked that something like mysterious substances coming from the deep it wasn't a surefire engagement driver for this episode. But it just wasn't. Perhaps that's just my own bias, and this kind of plot, which I don't even know what to call, like what I'd call it, an environmental mystery plot? Whatever. Maybe this kind of plot just doesn't interest me. Maybe it has something to do with our characters interacting with this thing that they cannot have a dynamic with. The goo isn't sentient, it doesn't act any kind of way, there's nothing to bounce off of here. Hopefully I'm making sense. It's just a plot element that doesn't give us anything to work with. Like, in SpongeBob SquarePants vs. The Big One, not only did that episode have new characters, but it also gave The Big One some personality for the short time that we actually see it, and it was built up the whole episode. Floating balls of goo that never change from being floating balls of goo are not interesting. Alright, I think I've made my point. I'll move on now. Kind of related to that whole semi-rant is that this episode just disappoints me. I mean, it's horror themed, we can see that from the name of the episode and the way the title card looks, but I guess I should really say that it's supposedly horror themed because this episode does not lean into the horror at all. I don't know about y'all, but that's exactly what I want to see, man. Horror-themed episodes are some of my favorite kinds. I'm sure y'all know that by now, given how much I gushed about exactly that quality for episodes like Spongehenge, Squid's Visit, and Planet of the Jellyfish. I'm sure that if this episode had chosen to go in a more horror direction, like if, say, the goo balls were a harbinger for something else, then this episode could have been a lot more interesting. This episode really does not go in the horror direction in any way whatsoever, despite going out of its way to begin with a narration that promises exactly that, and so it's this bait and switch that disappoints me, because it's like the rug's been pulled out from under me. Not cool, man. Okay, time to get this show on the road. Let's get into my normal chronological commentary, alliteration, of the episode. It Came from Goo Lagoon starts out with SpongeBob and Patrick enjoying some fun in the sun at, you guessed it, Goo Lagoon. We don't have a ton of episodes set here, relatively, so this is nice. Or it's nice until I realize that this first minute or so isn't really all that entertaining. You'll notice this becoming a pattern quickly, I imagine. I will say that I did like the callback to SpongeGuard on duty with SpongeBob and Patrick being unable to swim, or at least I'm choosing to believe it's a callback. This little bit could have been funnier though. But at least it means that the plot gets kickstarted pretty quickly as SpongeBob and Patrick are suddenly lifted out of the water by strange floating bubbles of purple goo. After figuring out that the bubbles can bounce, the two best friends start playing with it, causing a lot of people to kinda almost drown. Now, this next thing I gotta say, I need y'all to know it pains me to have to say this, because y'all know I've got nothing but praise for the OST choices in this show, generally. But Spongemonger was really not at all the right choice for this scene, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, it actually bothers me. I don't really think any of this show's typical like chase music would have worked here, except maybe Slide Whistle Stooges, but that's a hard maybe. I normally would have just let something like this slide, but when I'm already grasping for literally anything to get me engaged, of course something like this is going to take me right out of the episode. Because It Came from Goo Lagoon is a special, all sorts of characters join in on the action in this episode, and we see them all during these next few minutes. First, there's Plankton, who is trying to sell his chum at the beach, which I guess isn't the worst business decision. I like his little hat and bandana when we first see him. Then we get Squidward, whose peaceful day at the beach is quickly ruined. At least we get a very quick Squidward and Plankton interaction out of this, one that really makes me wish we had more, because their potential of being allies in misery who also don't like each other is just too promising. And then there's the biggest surprise to me, which is Sandy. Now don't get me wrong, this is a pleasant surprise, because usually Sandy is either the last to join the main cast of an episode, which I guess she still kind of is here, given that Mr. Krabs isn't a major player in this one, or is absent altogether. Anyway, Sandy enters the episode to tell everyone that the goo bubbles are dangerous, which then makes the next few minutes, at least, of this episode rather predictable. She explains that the goo bubbles are unstable and could explode at any time. She also says that they're toxic, but this is just an extra word used to make them sound more dangerous, given that this part is never brought up again. God, saying that just made me feel like a 2010 SpongeBob reviewer. I shudder at the thought. Anyway, Plankton is pretty interested in hearing about the danger of these bubbles, which also makes his actions rather predictable. His actions, of course, being trying to get in control of the bubbles so he can control Bikini Bottom. Since it's a special episode, he's got to think a little bigger this go around, I suppose. It's also obvious that no one will listen to Sandy, which is exactly what happens. Sandy's frustration at the Bikini Bottomites for being so willfully ignorant is funny, at least. It's also so real. So real. Makes me think of both my frustration at people for not masking and especially my frustration at people for using AI. I mean, despite this episode coming out a whole decade before this nonsense, it really hit the mark on people abandoning facts, safety, and sense for convenience, just like the AI craze. Who cares that it's literally causing a global clean water supply crisis, polluting literally everywhere but especially poor black communities, running up your electric bill, stealing your data, surveying you, atrophying your brain, and is obviously being used to compensate for the brain damage caused by COVID, which everyone also conveniently ignores. Go ahead and keep calling it chat like your friends and using it to write an email and make a grocery list and draft a presentation like you forgot how to function. Go ahead and make that silly cartoon of yourself and that took an entire bottle of water's worth to generate. Go ahead and pretend like you've never heard any of the bad effects before, because it's fine as long as it doesn't affect you, right? As long as you get what you want, right? Who cares about life when you've got convenience? Who cares about the environment when you've got entertainment on your phone? Who cares about what's coming down the pipeline when you've got yours? At least the world of Bikini Bottom gets to bounce back when shit like this happens. Ours doesn't. So think about that. Sorry, that got heated and went way off of what I was originally going to say. But I guess it needed to be said. I could edit this out, but nah. Well, anyway, back to the episode at hand. So, after Sandy explains that the goo is dangerous, SpongeBob and Patrick show all of the cool stuff people can do with the goo since they weren't listening to her at all. We then get a montage of the goo being distributed to Bikini Bottomites, and this montage is reasonably entertaining. Nothing super good, but it's at least not boring. And the scene between Plankton and Karen is pretty funny and entertaining too. The episode keeps returning to Sandy trying to warn everyone, and of course nobody listening since nothing bad has happened yet. And while this is, as I've already mentioned, incredibly realistic, it also plays out so fucking boringly, and it's not that funny to me. It's more frustrating, honestly. Again, these feelings are probably intensified by the many real-world connections I can make here, and my general hatred of the Cassandra Truth trope, but also, the Bikini Bottomites are just so fucking annoying, and have no sense at all. This part of the plot is also kind of dropped unceremoniously when, after a huge goo bubble arises and the news actually features her, Sandy just goes to run tests on the giant ball of goo instead of repeating the conclusion she came to earlier in the episode. I don't know, that was weird to me. Anyway, the reason a giant ball of goo appeared is because Plankton was digging down in the trenches of Goo Lagoon and opened up the crack where all of the goo was coming out of, because he too is a fool. But at least this is in character for him. After Sandy, with the help of SpongeBob and Patrick, runs some tests on the bubble in which nothing entertaining happens, the bubble suddenly starts floating. I liked the bit where Patrick just randomly uses the bathroom and ends up getting stuck on the ball. And then we finally did get a joke that made me laugh with Sandy having missiles in her submarine for when she gets stuck in traffic. That was pretty funny. Unfortunately, jokes like that were far and few in between in this episode. Eventually, Sandy, SpongeBob, and Patrick find out that Plankton is behind the bubble moving erratically, and I love how completely over it they were when Plankton starts gloating. That was also pretty funny. After a decently amusing chase sequence where SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy fail to stop Plankton, Plankton brings the goo bubble over to the Krusty Krab, where we finally see Mr. Krabs. And Plankton's plan is simple: give him the formula or all of Bikini Bottom gets blown up by the bubble. A rather nuclear solution. And then the episode suddenly decides to become a kaiju parody when SpongeBob makes a bubble giant to fight Plankton and the goo. I like the absurdity, but this isn't really executed very well, not super entertaining, and it doesn't even, affect the plot literally at all, because Patrick ends up accidentally popping the bubble before it even fights Plankton or the goo. And yeah, I know anticlimacticness can be funny, but when the episode has been boring, don't make the one interesting thing anticlimactic. Mr. Krabs eventually gives in and gives Plankton the formula, but Plankton pops the bubble anyway because he's an asshole. And it turns out it didn't even destroy anything, just put goo everywhere. Well, then what was the point of any of the catastrophizing? We've literally seen Bikini Bottom blown up before. Now this is just discount Fungus Among Us, with Mr. Krabs taking advantage of the mess to provide a cleaning service for a fee. I did like that it turned out that he gave Plankton a fake formula with a stick of dynamite in it, causing Plankton to actually blow up. No matter how many times the show does a gag like that, I'll always think it's at least amusing. Yeah, I didn't really love It Came from Goo Lagoon, or particularly like it. I kind of disliked it, but not as strongly as some of my rather scathing remarks might imply. I have a bad habit of going hard on nitpicks, don't I? Oh well. It's more entertaining for me to do it like this. So anyway, my biggest problem here was the writing itself, because the execution of everything from the plot to the humor to even the vibes was just meh. And this episode also had the misfortune of reminding me too much of real-world problems, which isn't entirely the episode's fault, but like with other episodes to do this, it still means that I just don't leave this episode enjoying it as much as I would have had it not done that. But I'm just generally disappointed by this episode. It had some good here and there, and the bad wasn't that bad, but it wasn't great. And so all of this is why this episode is being put in my mediocre tier, where it comes in with a score of 5.8 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. You know, I really hadn't expected to say so much about this episode, but that's good because I've been trying to make my reviews of special episodes actually feel worthy of special episodes again. They've been so short lately. But it also just depends a lot on the kind of mood I'm in when I write these scripts. If I'm just not in a writing mood and have a bit of writer's block, then I'm just going to stick closer to the written review, which is typically shorter than what a full-fledged script would be. But if I'm really able to sit down and have the words flow, then my reviews can be long as shit. There's an honest quality in the, rawness of my reviews that I like. I don't know, something about the low-budget nature of my production, my at most 3 or 4 takes of recordings, my tangenty commentaries. That's just my style. I don't know why I'm saying all of this. Y'all know this by now. I've been doing this for 3 years now. Which, wow, that's actually the first time I thought about that, since I yet again forgot to actually celebrate the anniversary of my reviews. But wow, 3 years. That's a long time. And a lot has changed in my life since I started. Kind of hard to believe that I've only gone on one major hiatus in all that time. And in my opinion, that only somewhat counts because I was doing written reviews for almost that entire time. But anyway, none of these are closing thoughts about the episode at hand, just thoughts about my own production style, I guess, which were spurred by the length of this review and especially the big soapbox tangent I ended up having in there. But, you know, it needed to be said. Gotta make sure my subscribers know what I'm about. Alright, well, that's enough out of me today. I'm gonna go ahead and close things off here, and I'll see y'all in the next review.